Brighton have been one of the most entertaining teams in the league this season, boasting a highly aggressive attack but also a somewhat leaky defence, and much of this is thanks to their new manager, Fabian Hürzeler. At just 31 years old, Hurzeler has managed to implement some of the riskiest tactics in the Premier League and make them work. In this video, we'll dissect 3 key tactics that Hurzeler has introduced at Brighton and how they are making Brighton one of the most feared sides in the Premier League. A decade of increasingly sophisticated pressing techniques has pushed teams like Brighton, who aim to build up from the back, to find creative ways to progress the ball. The key objective during the build-up is to move the ball from defense to attack as quickly as possible. To achieve this, Hurzeler has implemented a unique 2-3-5 formation during the build-up. In this setup, both centre-backs position themselves alongside the goalkeeper to form the first line of defense, while the 2 full-backs move into the midfield, creating a second line along with one player from the double pivot. This innovative use of the full-backs frees the remaining midfielder from the double pivot to push forward and create an overload in the midfield. For example, in this build-up scenario, Brighton is set up in a 2-3-5 formation. Notice Milner's positioning. He's placed right next to Pedro. When Welbeck drops deep to assist with the build-up, Milner supports the attack, creating a 3v4 overload. Not only does Milner offer an additional passing option, but he can also make runs behind the defence, opening up goal-scoring opportunities. In another scenario, notice Ayari's positioning. He's placed right next to the attacking midfielder, creating a 5v4 overload. Once he receives the ball, he has multiple options to progress the attack. Once again, Brighton build up from the back, with Milner positioned high to help advance the attack. The key element of this tactic is that it consistently leaves at least one player unmarked, giving them the time and space to create chances. That explains why Brighton has the 3rd highest number of progressive ball carriers, just behind Tottenham and Man City. The beauty of this system is its effectiveness. It allows them to transition from their defensive third to the attacking third in as few as 3 passes. Brighton excels at moving the ball into the attacking third, but that's only half the equation. The other, and arguably more important part, is creating clear scoring opportunities. Thanks to Hurzeler's second tactic, Brighton has already created 91 chances this season, placing them in the top 4. But what exactly is this tactic? Here's a clue. It involves exploiting these spaces on the field. If you analyse all of Brighton's goals this season, you'll find that the majority have come from these key areas. For example, the winning goal against Manchester United, or the first goal against Tottenham. Which makes us wonder, why focus on these spaces? What's so special about them? To answer that, let's dive into the zone control data from the top 4 Premier League teams. Across all of them, one key pattern stands out. The wide areas on the field are often left exposed. Defensively, most teams prioritize protecting the central spaces directly in front of the goal, as these are the areas where the most dangerous chances can be created. This means that when teams are under pressure, they tend to collapse inward, packing bodies into the middle to prevent direct shots on goal. As a result, the flanks, particularly in the final third, are less guarded and more vulnerable to exploitation. This is exactly where Brighton thrives. Rather than trying to force their way through the crowded centre, they smartly redirect their play to these wide zones, where there's often more room to operate. By flooding these spaces with overlapping fullbacks, wide attackers, and midfield support, they stretch the opposition's defence horizontally, forcing defenders to cover more ground. While this style of play has worked well for Brighton, it's undeniably a risky system. The 2-3-5 build-up formation creates overloads in the attacking areas, but it also leaves Brighton's defensive line exposed. If they lose possession during the build-up phase, they face a high risk of counter-attacks, which could lead to conceding goals. In fact, 32% of all goals scored in the Premier League over the past 5 seasons have come from these exact counter-attacking moments. Teams like Manchester City, Arsenal and Liverpool excel at exploiting such situations. So how does Brighton A team committed to this bold style avoid falling into the same trap. This brings us to their final tactic, known as automation. Simply put, automation refers to a sequence of actions that are triggered by specific events during the game. When a trigger, like a defender receiving the ball, occurs, players respond with a predetermined action. This approach improves efficiency, allowing players to react quickly without needing to come up with a new solution every time a similar situation unfolds. For example, whenever Brighton faces heavy pressing from their opponents, they rely on third-man combinations to break free, using the same precise sequence of passes each time. Let's look at an example in action. Manchester United is pressing Brighton with 5 players up front. Brighton aims to play down the wing, but both halfbacks are blocked. To counter this, Brighton brings in a third player to connect with one of the wingbacks. In another example, Arsenal is pressing Brighton with 6 players up front. Brighton again wants to play down the wing, but Veltman is blocked by Martinelli. To counter this, Brighton brings in a third man, Hurzeler, to connect with Veltman. And that wraps up our look at Hurzeler's tactical masterclass at Brighton. I hope you enjoyed the breakdown and maybe picked up a few new insights along the way. If you did, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel. It truly helps more than you know. Creating these videos while balancing a full-time job isn't easy, but your support keeps me motivated to stay consistent and bring you more content. Let me know in the comments which team I should do next. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.